Hey guys, Welsknight here, and welcome back to another episode of Kingdoms. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. I'm having an okay day. If I'm being honest, I'm actually feeling a little bit under the weather today. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I just slept funny last night and didn't sleep very well or what, but I have been feeling kind of meh like all day long. But the show must go on, and we have videos to record and things to do in Kingdoms. So, today what I'd like to do is build a couple of houses. If we're standing down here in this kind of central area of our fishing village, we have this big open space on our hill, and I'd like to put one house kind of right in here, and then another house kind of right in here. So this whole area is kind of almost like enclosed with houses. I think that'll be good. And then I think that's basically going to be it for houses in the fishing village. We'll have some other things here, some other details, smaller things, but as far as actual houses go, just a couple, because that'll give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses, and I think for a relatively small fishing village, like, that's very fitting. So that's what we're going to do today. But we've built houses before, so I'm going to make this kind of a talky episode as well. I want to talk about this comment right here while we build these houses. So if you're not interested in the houses, feel free to do this as like a podcast type episode where you put it on a second monitor or just minimize it or whatever. Otherwise, we can build the houses together too. So today's comment says, "Hey Wells, I know you said that you didn't finish college because you started doing YouTube full time. I am currently at college, but I only came here because it was expected of me. I really want to focus on my own gaming channel, but I don't know how to explain this to my parents. Do you have any advice?" And this is from Jizook Gaming. Open door, please. Thank you. I feel like an advice column. I've turned into an advice column. Sincerely, confused in Kentucky. No, I'm joking. But yes, that is something that I want to talk about, especially since it kind of referenced some of the other things that we've talked about. Actually, let's start with the wooden framework, I think. So it kind of, that comment kind of referenced some of the other things that we've discussed in Kingdoms relatively recently. Let's scoot this back like one more this way. Yeah, there we go. So like, pursuing your dreams and the idea of college being something that you should do because you want to, not because you feel that you have to, and, just various different things that we've kind of talked about in this series. And I thought, yeah, you know what? Sure, let's talk about this one. So we're going to do that today. And here's kind of the deal, right? Like, I think... I don't ever want to tell someone that they should not pursue their dreams. I think it's very important to try and end up in a job or a career that you find enjoying and fulfilling, and that, you wake up every day and you're excited about your life rather than waking up every day and being like, I gotta go to work again, and I've been there. I mean, I've done that whole, like, I gotta go to work. I gotta wake up. I gotta be, get out of bed, take a shower, go to work, be there at 9, come home at whatever. And like, I've been there. I've done the daily grind. I've done the office cubicle nightmare. I've been there. And I think it's very important to find a career or a job or something that you enjoy. With that said, I think it's also very important. What were we using for floors? Spruce? Yeah, that's what I thought. I think it's also very important to do so responsibly. And I think it's important to do so in a manner that kind of insulates you against failure. Because you're probably going to fail at least a few times. You don't get whatever it is you want overnight. That's not something that happens. It takes often years to get to the point where you are doing that thing that you love to do. A lot of people, who start businesses or YouTube channels or whatever it may be, they try many times before they finally get it right. Myself included. It took me 2-3 years, something like that, to get to the point where I can do this full time. And I mean, obviously now I do this full time. We need more spruce logs. But it takes a long time. And if you look at it as, strictly from like the perspective of like a traditional job, right? Like a quote unquote regular job, for lack of a better word, with YouTube. And I'm going to talk about YouTube because Jazook, who wrote the comment, asked specifically about YouTube. But if you look at it from the perspective of like a regular job, you're basically doing like a multiple year unpaid internship kind of before you get to the point where you can do this full time. Like for the first roughly probably year and a half to 2 years of my YouTube career, I made, pennies per hour. I would not only be making less than minimum wage for the majority of that time. I was making so much less than minimum wage that it would have been like horrendous. Like it would basically have been like slavery if I was working for an actual company. Money-wise, just looking at it strictly from that perspective. Now, that's not to say that I regret it or that YouTube should be all about money or anything like that, because that's not the case. But when you look at it from like a responsible adult standpoint, right? Because when you're an adult, you're supposed to be all responsible and stuff. Like you look at it from that perspective, and you're basically trying to explain to your parents, so yeah, I want to drop out of school and work a job that doesn't pay me for the first 2 years, regardless of how many hours I work. And that's a pretty hard sell to parents or to family members or, significant others, whatever, especially if those people don't really get YouTube or get Twitch streaming, stuff like that. Like my dad is a good example. My dad, I have a great relationship with my dad. We're not on bad terms or anything like that at all. He has kind of a vague understanding of what I do, but what he knows is that I enjoy it and that I, make enough to feed my family, so he's fully supportive. My dad has been self-employed almost his entire life, so he understands the draw, if you will, of self-employment, of being your own boss. He gets that, but he doesn't really get YouTube. And more specifically, he doesn't really get gaming, especially. He's never been a gamer. He's never really understood the appeal of video games. He's always kind of been like that stereotypical father that's like, when I was a boy, we would go outside in our free time. We wouldn't sit and play video games all day. We would go outside and play baseball, and we would use our imaginations. And I don't understand how you can just waste your whole day staring at a screen. And that was my dad in a nutshell. And that's it's fine. I get it. Whatever. It's all good. But especially for parents that don't really understand like the appeal of YouTube and of gaming. It's really hard to explain to them that, yeah, I want to make this my career. I want to do this as a job, especially when, if we are being entirely honest with ourselves, the success rate of people successfully making it to the point where they can do YouTube or Twitch or anything similar full time is very low. Like percentage-wise, very few people actually make it to that point. So I think it's really important to kind of insulate yourself against failure. And what I mean by that is that if it doesn't work out, I think you should do everything in your power to make it work, or at least attempt to make it work. But at the same time, I think it's also important to have backup plans, right? To do everything you can to make sure that you can still have a happy, productive, and, responsible, financially secure life, even if your dream does not work out, or if something happens. Like the thing with YouTube, a lot of people don't realize about YouTube could end at any time, and it would be completely beyond my power. Google could just decide one year, YouTube hasn't been profitable ever. We're just going to shut the whole thing down. We're done with it. We don't need YouTube anymore. It was a fun experiment while it lasted, but whatever. Or maybe some court case will happen, and that court case will basically decide that, yeah, gaming on YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that's copyright infringement. We can't do that anymore. Yeah, this video this making videos of games and stuff like no, we can't allow that anymore. And who knows? I mean, something like that could happen at any time, and it would be entirely beyond my control. So even like in my current position, I have backup plans. I have other things that I could do. I would never just put all of my eggs in the YouTube basket, so to speak. Like at any time, I could just decide, we're using cobble for these edges, right? Yeah. I could decide, you know what? I want to go back to being a court reporter. I want to go back to working in court reporting. I enjoyed that. It was fun. I'd like to do that again. I could do that. Or I could go back into the Army. Or I could go back to school and finish out my English education degree. Or I could get a job working in a call center, which I did for many years. Or I could get a job doing, and you name it, all sorts of different things. Like I have backup plans for my backup plans. And, hopefully I'll never have to use them out of necessity. But I think it's important to have those because as much as it's nice to, have dreams and to, be optimistic about how successful you will become and to be inspired and all that kind of stuff, I think it's also important to be realistic and to be responsible and to not put all of your eggs into one basket. So, Jazook in this case asked, I want to do this YouTube thing and I'm having trouble trying to convince my parents that I should drop out of college and do this YouTube thing, right? And I glanced at their channel, and it's relatively small. It's growing. It's Minecraft content and stuff like that. But it's a relatively small channel. I can say with absolute certainty, it is nowhere near the size of channel you would have to be at to do this as a living. I know that for certain. That's not to say it will never get there. Maybe it will, but right now it's not there. Before I became a full-time content creator, my channel was already at that point. And I would absolutely say, don't decide to become a full-time content creator. Don't take that jump until your channel is at the point where you can do it right now. And even more so, has been that way for a couple of months at least, because things fluctuate all the time on YouTube, on Twitch. When it comes to content creation, I don't think I've ever had the exact same paycheck 2 months in a row. I don't think that has ever happened. It always fluctuates a little bit. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it jumps a little bit here. Like this time of year is kind of a historically bad time of the year for YouTube. It's just the seasonal thing. It'll pick up again sometime around like December, January, as far as views are going to go. And then it'll drop off again in like February or so, and then it will skyrocket again during summer vacation. Like that's just the way YouTube works. That's just the way it is. But stuff never stays the same 2 months in a row. So not only wait until you can wait until you have enough income that you can do it full time, but wait until you've had that income for at least a few months and you know that it's not just like a fluke, right? Be responsible about it. And in the meantime, pursue other things that you enjoy. Go to school, work a job, maybe a job that you don't like. Sometimes it's important to do things that you don't like to do as well. As much as I hated my job working as a dishwasher at a rib joint, it paid the bills. It allowed me to pay my bills. Or my job working in a call center. Thank you for calling Verizon Wireless. My name's Welsknight. How may I help you today? Yeah, I hated that job too, but it was a necessary job. It was something that I had to do because, in the real world, things cost money. That's just the way it is, So while you're working on these other dreams, while you're pursuing that YouTube dream or that Twitch dream or whatever it may be, or maybe it's not content creation at all. Maybe your dream is to become the world's greatest chef or something, whatever. while you're pursuing these other dreams, make sure you're still spending your time responsibly and doing other things to help you in life. And maybe that's a job that you don't like, but you have to do something to put food on the table, so to speak, right? Like, your needs come before your wants. And I think, when we kind of talked about the idea of going to college because you want to, not because you feel like you have to, and the idea of we've also talked about the idea of working a job that you enjoy versus working a job that, pays the most. We've talked about that. I think it's important to keep in mind, we talked about the idea of diminishing returns during, I think, both of those conversations, right? The idea of diminishing returns, where that the saying, money can't buy happiness, right? And that's true. I don't think there's a whole lot more happiness between making enough to pay all your bills and put a little bit of extra away versus, making enough to pay your bills and put a lot extra away. The big thing is, as long as you're making enough to pay your bills, and you have that financial security, then you're fine. We've talked about kind of that idea. Well, I think basic needs kind of go above your desire to be happy. So even though the money can't buy happiness, as the saying goes, it can buy food, and food is kind of something you need to live. So, it's one of those things okay, you got to get by somehow. You need to provide for your actual needs in life before you do anything else. And maybe that's working a job you hate. Maybe that's, maybe that's going to school and working towards a job that you will eventually have if your dream doesn't work out. Because even though I think it's incredibly important to pursue your dreams, I also think it's incredibly important to keep in mind that it is possible that you won't be able to achieve those. You have to be realistic, and you have to temper your expectations, so to speak. You have to kind of be responsible in the manner in which you pursue your dreams, I guess would be the best way to say it. So work towards your dreams, but while you are working towards your dreams, make sure you're doing other things too and creating other options for yourself as you work towards those dreams too. When I was working towards that dream of becoming a full-time YouTuber, I was doing other stuff too. I was working a full-time job. I was doing the military thing. I was working for a while there. I was working in customer service. I was doing, actually, you know what? I think customer service was before I ever started my channel. But either way, I was a full-time student at one point when I was doing YouTube. I was, a full-time military United States Army court reporter for a while there. There was other stuff that I was doing as well, and things that realistically I would be able to continue doing if YouTube didn't work out. I could go back to the Army at any time. I could find a job as a court reporter or a transcriptionist at basically any time. I've got these other options that are out there if I ever decide, YouTube's just not for me anymore, or if YouTube just dies, if something happens to YouTube. I keep glass on the other side, don't I? Yes, I remember. So I think that's very important. I think it's absolutely necessary to pursue your dreams in a responsible manner that insulates you against failure. Because there's a few things that you don't necessarily want to do. You don't want to become a burden on your family, obviously, right? You don't want to be like my uncle, who is, 50, 60 something years old and basically has never really had a job, and his problem is really just kind of laziness, if I'm being honest. But anyway, I'm digressing. Sometimes you don't want to be a burden on your family. You want to contribute to your family in whatever way you can. But you also want to make sure that you can live. You want to make sure you have enough money to put food on your table and to keep your electricity on and, pay for your basic necessities, pay for the roof over your head, etc. That's important. And you want to make sure that you have options in case something happens. You know, you never know when something is going to happen to your job, or, you know, something is going to happen to your life or whatever. I mean, there's so many things that could potentially go wrong in life. And to be honest, that probably will go wrong in life at some point. Life is not sunshine and roses all the time. It never has been, and it never will be. You're going to run into challenges of some sort, and the best you can do is just try to prepare for them as best you can. Just accept that sometimes bad things are going to happen in life. That's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of life. It's not always going to be perfect, but accept that those challenges are going to arise. And when they do, you know, do whatever you can to overcome them. And it's a lot easier to overcome them if you've set yourself up in such a way that you can, you know, absorb a little bit of a bad thing happening. You know, if someone has saved up a lot of money and put it into like a savings account or into like an emergency fund, you know, that option is there to insulate them if something happens. You know, it's a lot easier to deal with being unemployed for a few months if you lose your job when you have 6 months worth of expenses away in the bank, just saved for a rainy day, you know? And I think it's important to kind of be responsible as well. You know, pursue your dreams. I'm absolutely not telling people to pursue their dreams, because I think that's an important thing for everybody to do. I think you absolutely should pursue your dreams, and I don't think you can ever really be happy unless you are at least trying to better yourself in some way, or trying to reach for something more than where you're. I think part of happiness is the journey, is trying to get to that point where you achieve success, or you know, however you define success. But at the same time, I think it's also important to do it responsibly, and that's kind of like an important thing too. You know, you gotta, there's all these things to consider and all these things to kind of keep in mind as you're working on these different things. And, you know, be responsible. Pursue your dreams, but be responsible as you do so. So my advice to Jizook would be stay in school, you know, keep working on the YouTube thing. You know, work as hard as you possibly can on the YouTube thing. Prioritize YouTube over things that are not important, right? Like maybe if your dream is to be, you know, a YouTuber as your actual job, maybe you prioritize, you know, getting that video out for tomorrow over going to that party with some friends, you know? I was in college. I know what college is like. Parties are a thing. They happen. You know, don't, let's be honest here. Maybe you prioritize making sure that that video is out for tomorrow instead of making sure that you can make it to that party on 5th Street, right? But at the same time, don't prioritize YouTube over everything else in your life that's important. Make sure you're still, you know, doing your best in school and completing your homework and all this other kind of stuff. Because if YouTube ever falls through, whether it's because you've just decided that it's not for you anymore, or whether it's because YouTube as a company decides that something isn't going to work out, or whatever it may be, if something happens, you don't want all of your eggs to be in that YouTube basket. You want your eggs nicely spread around like a scavenger hunt on Easter, right? You want your eggs all over the place so that you can, you know, have options. You always want to have backup plans. And I think the same is true, not just for YouTube and Twitch, but for everything in life. I think it's always important to have just kind of a personal list of backup plans in case something horrible happens to your job or to whatever. You know, have a list of things that you could do, and kind of make a note of it and be aware of it, because you never know when something like that's going to come up. It could happen anytime. Bad things in life are going to happen. That's just the way that life goes. But if you are at least prepared to some extent in advance, it makes those bad things a lot more tolerable and a lot easier to deal with. And I think that's very important too. So that's kind of the deal there. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go make this like a 9x9, maybe? Or not a 9x9. Maybe make this 1, 2, 3. Let's go maybe like a 1, 2. Let's go maybe like a 5-block interior, like so. Yeah, that seems good. So then we'll have a house here, a house here, house here, house in. So yeah, so, and then this'll actually work out really well for us, I think. So let's go 1, 2, 3, right? And we'll kind of bring this like so. Boop, 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 boop. And I'm going to keep this house very, very simple. This is not going to be a complicated house at all. We'll just kind of go like so. Take out these little bits right here. And these little bits right here. And then we'll go boop, boop, boop. Boop, 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 boop. Lovely. All right. And then I'm thinking a door like maybe right here. Perhaps. All right, so 4-block high. Let's grab a couple logs. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then back here, we can kind of just bring these up 3, I think. That needs to go. Ooh. Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. Block here. There. And then finally here. And that should do what we need it to do. Right? As far as like a thing goes, we can maybe put like a little deck right here or something. But this is looking good. Let me get this house finished up, guys. I'll be back with you in just a minute. All right, guys, I'm back and the second house is done. And I think this creates a really cool effect. So like when you're standing over here, right, you come around and all these houses kind of come into view. They're all kind of gathered around the central circle. We will need to take this pathway that we made that kind of goes off this way and stuff like that. We'll have to bring it up the hill to this door and bring it over here to this one. But we're getting that feel, we're getting that atmosphere and that vibe that we want, which is that this is kind of a fishing village all built around like this sort of central area. And I like it a lot. I think it's turning out really well. And at this point, I think we're probably done adding houses. We have enough houses now. So I think the other things that we're going to want to add are all relatively simple. Probably want to do some stuff over here by the docks. Probably want to add a couple other like minor things, but I think we're getting pretty close to this kingdom being all done, this little fishing village. And then we'll be able to move on to a new kingdom. So that should be very good. But unfortunately, guys, I am out of time for this episode. So my friends, if you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Links in the description below, so check that out as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.